News correspondent Zara King and camera operator Joan McKenna are near Medyka on the Polish-Ukrainian border for us this evening. Zara, you're at a makeshift camp there. You've been talking to people who've been crossing the border there all day today. What have they been saying to you?
Yes, Colette, well, what we're seeing unfolding here are the consequences of that war, as we heard in Paul Quinn's report, and thousands of people flooding into this makeshift refugee centre as they pause after their long journey across the border and figure out exactly what they're going to do next. Cameras are not allowed inside, but we did take a walk through it earlier on, just left the camera outside to have a look and to speak to some of the people as they were waiting there. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of camp beds set up inside. There are blankets, people are sleeping, small children are sleeping, they are resting. Some people do have a next destination in mind, Colette. Some people have friends and family who will come and collect them, but there are others who have no connections, who have no contacts outside of their life in Ukraine, and those people find themselves at a standstill, not knowing where they're going to end up next. Interesting to see the supports that are being put in place here. There's a soup kitchen set up, there is food, there are blankets. Also inside there is somebody giving out SIM cards. There's a company giving people SIM cards to put into their Ukrainian phones to allow them to have that connectivity. Behind me here you're seeing people queuing for buses. They are boarding these buses which are taking them across Poland, and a lot of them trying to reach out and get out of this border region. Earlier we were speaking with one young woman. Her name is Stephanie. She's just 20 years old, Colette. She's from Kharkiv originally. Again, Stephanie, a lot of people we're meeting the last day or two, I said this to you earlier on, are people who were trying to sit it out, who wanted to stay at home, who didn't want to flee this conflict, but then found themselves in a situation where they had no other choice.
It is like the most sad maybe thing, not just like to leave our homes and so on, but to leave people.
Do you want to go home eventually? Do you think you will go home?
I'm scared I'm not going home, but I wish I could someday.
Well, Colette, Stephanie is planning to travel to Germany, where she has some friends, and she's hoping that she won't be there for too long and that she will eventually get to go home in the coming months. There is great optimism among the Ukrainian people. They are hoping that eventually they will go home and that this is just a temporary measure. Now, I touched on it earlier on. The response has been phenomenal. We met one gentleman who travelled all the way from Holland to be here. We can take a look at some of the pictures. He and his colleagues have brought tons of food, beef, chicken. They've brought chips. They're making steak for people and making sure that they're well fed. They said they have the capacity to feed up to 40,000 people. They drove for 24 hours, Colette, to be here because they just felt compelled to do something to help. It's interesting, speaking to Jarud, the gentleman running this operation, he tells us that when he speaks to some of the people who've come over the border, a lot of them, particularly those who don't have friends and family outside of Ukraine, are boarding buses with destination unknown.
They don't know. This morning there were some people, they're going on the bus to Gothenburg, Sweden. You don't know where you're going to live. Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Sweden, Denmark, you don't know. They arrive, they sleep inside here. It's terrible to see that. And then at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, they say, wake up, we go. The buses arrive and they leave. They stay here for 24 hours and then they leave to another country. But when you see it, look, the little children, not normal.
Well, Colette, I suppose he touched on it there. The difficulty is what's going on for the children. It's been terrifying for some of these children. We heard earlier from one lady on the 12:30 who spoke about the fact that the children inside, if they hear any sort of loud noise or a bang, they're jumping, they're nervous, because we have to remember that the place that these children came from, a loud noise meant bombing and shelling. This is not a usual situation for children to be going through. It is incredibly difficult, and as I say, for some of them, they don't know where they're going to next.